What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Jon Jones reacts to Dana White's comments. Jon Jones has made it clear he's willing to put the brakes on his retirement in the hopes of securing a spot at the UFC's White House card next year. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. But following comments from Dana White that tossed cold water on that talk, Bones has responded. Immediately after US President Donald Trump announced that the UFC is planning to hold an event on the White House grounds next year, Jones reported via social media he wants to be part of the historic card. So much so, Jones is re-entering the testing pool, and he said he wants to fight whoever's holding the UFC heavyweight crown next July. Well, not surprisingly, White was asked about Jones's comments while talking to the media after UFC 319. Here's what the UFC boss man had to say.
Jon Jones says he wants to be on there too, and he says he would fight whoever the champion is at that time. But would you be okay with him like coming back and potentially winning that belt again? And you might have to go through.
Well, it's not even about him winning the belt. I mean, you know how I felt about him. I can't risk putting him in big positions in a big spot and have something go wrong.
Later in the presser, White also had this to say about planning for the White House card. That fight's a year away, so I'm not thinking about anything right now. The landscape will change so much by next 4th of July. Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows who's going to be on that card, what the main event will be, or who will hold all the titles? Everything could be completely different, so it's not even worth thinking about it right now. Well, it didn't take long before Bones was responding to White's comments. Here's what the former heavyweight and light heavyweight champion had to say via social media. I heard the comments made at last night's press conference. While I was a little disappointed, I'm still in the UFC testing pool, staying sharp and continuing to train like a professional. I'll be ready for whatever comes next. In a recent interview, I shared that the opportunity to fight at the White House gave me something deeper to fight for, a why that goes beyond paychecks or belts. Fighting for my country gives me a greater purpose. The silver lining in all this is knowing that the fans see my heart. They see I'm ready and willing to take on anyone to represent my country on a historic stage. For me, it's never been just about the opponent. I'm chasing legacy, something timeless, something bigger than the moment. So for now, I'll keep grinding, stay patient, and stay faithful. I'm ready to fight on July 4th. Suffice it to say, it's going to be fascinating to see how this all plays out. Obviously, a bout between Jones and Tom Aspinall would be a massive addition for the White House card, and one could argue that's the perfect bait to finally get Bones signed for that fight. But even Dana White's biggest critics likely see where he's coming from here. Not only did Jones troll the MMA world for months in terms of whether he would fight again, but recently it was reported that he's allegedly had yet another run-in with the law. The controversial star has been accused of allegedly leaving the scene of a traffic accident. So what do you think? Will we see Jones fight at the White House card? Tom Aspinall signed contract for next fight. Tom Aspinall confirmed that he has signed his contract for his next fight, and although it's just a verbal agreement, he's insistent that he has an opponent and it's locked in. Here's what Tom had to say.
You said you have something coming. Is it signed? Is it locked in? Is it something we can expect soon?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, it is. As far as signed, I can't remember the last time I actually physically signed a contract. They just ask me, I just say yes, and then that's it. Usually I sign the contracts on fight week. Contracts actually don't mean too much. The UFC asks you, you say yes. The verbal contract is all anybody needs from me, so.
Alex Pereira trolls ex-girlfriend. Alex Pereira trolled his ex-girlfriend after she was kicked out of a karate combat event. His ex posted on social media saying, "Karate Combat, most unprofessional organization ever. Got blacklisted as a visitor just because the CEO is licking the balls of famous UFC fighters who don't want me at the event." Alex Pereira then posted a video trolling her by having a security team escort him out of the event, essentially making fun of her for being kicked out.
Got it all day.
Alex was attending the Karate Combat event because his sister Ilia Pereira was fighting on the card and ended up winning. Jack Della Maddalena responds to Ilia Topuria. After Max Holloway defeated Dustin Poirier to retain the BMF title, Ilia Topuria reacted by posting a picture of the BMF belt and wrote as the caption, "Still mine." Well, JDM doesn't agree with Ilia and responded to him by writing, "Little fella is a little confused. It's actually me." So who do you think is the real BMF? Let us know in the comments below. Renato Moicano called out for lying about UFC lawsuit. Renato Moicano has been taking heat after revealing he refused to take money from the settlement for the antitrust suit brought against Zuffa and the UFC. Not only that, now some observers have accused Money of not being completely honest about what went down. Recently, the lightweight reported via the Show Me the Money podcast that he turned down the money he was offered as part of the lawsuit. It's also been reported that Moicano inferred that he turned down a six-figure sum. Well, as noted, not everyone is on board with Moicano for doing so, and since then, he's responded to his critics via social media. Here's some of what he had to say. I'm amazed by how many people are cursing me out for my decision not to take the money from the lawsuit against the UFC. I believe those who are criticizing me haven't stopped to think about something simple. You shouldn't need a contract for your word to mean something. I agreed to the terms of the contract. Moicano also had this to say about the situation. I don't agree with a lot of the things the UFC does. For example, not allowing fighters to put their sponsors on their fight shorts. But when I signed the contract, I accepted those terms. If you're not satisfied, you can simply choose not to sign the contract. Monopolies are created by law. UFC bought other promotions. They agree that was free market. We have other shows like PFL, so there's known legal barriers for the other promotion. If you're a big MMA fan, you know that the debate around whether the UFC compensates fighters enough, especially compared with other major sports, is nothing new. The same can be said for the debate around whether the UFC constitutes a monopoly and whether fighters actually benefit from the quote free market. But one observer is also questioning whether Moicano exaggerated how much money he actually turned down. Here was the post. 31 cents times total compensation in class period plus 13,800 times number of fights in class period is the formula they're using to determine payouts. If your payout was $200,000, that means you made over $500,000 for your first 3 UFC fights. If fighters were regularly making that much on entry-level UFC deals, then there wouldn't have been a lawsuit. What do you make of all this, and do you agree with Moicano's arguments here? Alexander Volkanovski praises Max Holloway. Although Alexander Volkanovski has fought Max Holloway 3 different times, it's always been clear he has nothing but respect for Blessed. But following Holloway's latest win at UFC 318, it sounds like Volk's respect for his former foe has never been greater. Holloway faced Dustin Poirier in the headliner of Saturday's card and defended the BMF title he won last year by a thrilling decision. While the fight included many memorable moments, the bout's final seconds saw Blessed challenge Poirier to throw hands in the center of the octagon. Unlike Justin Gaethje at UFC 300, however, Poirier managed to survive Holloway's onslaught by clinching up. Not long after the fight, Volkanovski posted the following video in which he heaped praise on Holloway for what went down.
Incredible performance from Max. Again, not many people can come back from losses, let alone knockout losses. Let alone knockout losses in a BMF fight, be up again and still point to the ground and say, let's do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, he really is a BMF. That's like, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't do that. I'll be like, oh yeah, I'll be like, yeah, okay. And then I'll just pick my shot where it is. You know, you come here, I'm going to be a little strategic, you know what I mean? Like, that's just how I've always been and always will be. And I'm proud of that.
It is a really good point. Not only can Poirier crack, Holloway was coming off a knockout loss to Ilia Topuria in October, so it was a ridiculously brave move, very fitting of the BMF. And one of Poirier's former foes, Islam Makhachev, was clearly invested in watching Saturday's fight. As you can see in the following clip, the former lightweight king tuned into the bout while traveling in a car. What did you think of Poirier's retirement fight, and who do you want to see Holloway fight next? UFC updates. Let's take a look at some UFC and fight updates. If you've been worried that maybe Amanda Nunes would have second thoughts about ending her retirement and not fight the new bantamweight champion Kayla Harrison, you'll be happy to hear this news. Recently, it was reported that the former featherweight and bantamweight champion has officially re-entered the testing pool. The news comes a few weeks out from UFC 316, when Nunes was on hand to face off with Harrison after the latter won the 135 crown. There's no date yet for the Harrison-Nunes bout, but Nunes will likely be eligible to compete by the end of 2025 or early 2026. And if you've been caught up focusing on all the recent big fights and events, you may have missed the fact that, as it stands right now, UFC 319 does not have a co-main event. The card will go down on August 16 in Chicago, Illinois. This is why Aaron Pico recently floated the idea of his bout with Movsar Evloev being booked for that card. Pico was supposed to fight the featherweight contender at the UFC's July 26 card in Abu Dhabi, but Evloev had to withdraw. It's not clear if Evloev could even be ready to fight at UFC 319, but do you think that would make a suitable co-headliner? Best Nick MMA recently reported that light heavyweight Alexander Rakic will throw hands with Azamat Murzakanov at UFC 321 October 21st. Rakic is looking to end a 3-fight losing skid, although it should be noted that the Austrian's losses have come against top-tier competition. Murzakanov, meanwhile, has done nothing but win since he graduated to the UFC via Dana White's Contender Series. The Russian fighter has won all 5 of his octagon bouts to date, which includes a stoppage of Brenton Ribeiro in June. And Leo Guimarães recently reported that bantamweights Macy Chasson and Yana Santos will fight at UFC 320 October 4th. Chasson is looking to get back on track after dropping a decision to Ketlin Vieira in May. Santos also fought last in May, as she recorded a decision win over former champion Miesha Tate. Reinier de Ridder reveals game plan for Robert Whittaker fight. Reinier de Ridder will have the biggest and likely toughest test he's had in the octagon to date when he faces Robert Whittaker on July 26th. So how does the former one-champ plan to defeat one of the greatest middleweights of his generation? Well, recently, the Dutch Knight spoke with MMA Junkie, and while discussing his game plan for Bobby Knuckles, here was some of what he had to say. I cannot give him time to look and see because he has real knockout power and very nice, clean, straight shots. I've got to be very mindful of that. The pressure is the most important thing for me. I've got to put pressure on him. I've got to bring the heat early because I cannot let him move. I cannot let him see what's happening. I cannot let him play. He likes to bounce. He likes to look, and I'm sure I'm going to take him down. It's what I like the most, and I have to put him on his at least once, but we'll see if I can do damage meanwhile before. There's no question that Whittaker likes to bounce and that he has knockout power. Just ask Iskram Aliskerov. But it'll be very interesting to see if RDR can take Whittaker down at least once, as he noted he'll need to do. On paper, that seems like it could be a tough task. While de Ridder is a ridiculously dangerous fighter on the ground, he doesn't have the wrestling game of, say, Khamzat Chimaev. But what do you think of de Ridder's game plan? And do you see him going 4-0 in the octagon on July 26th? Patricio Pitbull calls out Aaron Pico after UFC win. Patricio Pitbull Pereira and Aaron Pico never wound up fighting under the Bellator banner, but Pitbull is driving hard to change all that now that they're UFC fighters. Patricio secured his first UFC win on Saturday by working his way to a decision win over featherweight contender Dan Ige. The bout marked the first time Pitbull had competed since he lost his octagon debut to Yair Rodriguez by decision in April. So while talking to the UFC news crew immediately after UFC 318, Pitbull proceeded to call for a bout with Pico. I have a name in mind. I want to face Aaron Pico. He had a fight canceled against Movsar Evloev, and now he's free. If he's good, we can fight next week. As Patricio alluded to, Pico was supposed to fight Evloev at the UFC's July 26 card in Abu Dhabi, but he recently withdrew from the fight, and while talking to the media after his latest win, Pitbull repeated his desire to throw hands with Pico.
Oh yeah, he's ready, I'm ready. Just a little bit, little problem in my nose. Stretch. Cortou.
Cut.
I cut my nose now, but 2 days, I'm good.
Yeah, it seems like he's like really eager to fight. His delay, like he keeps getting delayed. Do you think maybe he fights one time in the UFC, then maybe you fight him after that?
It's not necessary. He can make his debut in UFC against me. Now I am a veteran.
It is an interesting proposition, and as noted earlier, UFC 319 does not have a co-main. A fight between Pitbull and Pico probably wouldn't take that slot, but it would be a solid addition to the card if Evloev is still sidelined. That said, both Pitbull and Pico are not exactly household names with UFC-only fans, so the UFC may look in another direction. But what do you think? UFC fighter calls out Umar Nurmagomedov for ducking? Vinicius Oliveira continued to make waves at UFC 318, and after his latest win, the rising contender resumed calling out Umar Nurmagomedov. Oliveira faced Kyler Phillips at Saturday's event and proceeded to record a unanimous decision win. The victory was the Brazilian bantamweight's 4th win in the UFC, after competing on Dana White's Contender Series in 2023. The win also extended his winning streak to 6. While speaking to the media afterward, Oliveira didn't mince words when he was asked who he wants to fight next.
I'd like so much to face Umar Nurmagomedov, but I'm sure he's afraid of me. He got run away for a long time ago, so he'll never face me, and he will fade out behind Ali, his manager. But I'd like so much to fight against him on October in his country, like in Abu Dhabi. I will dare face him, but if he has courage to face me, but he doesn't have courage to face me. He's afraid of me. So the next one can be, I think, Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley is a real man, I think he will accept this fight. He'll not run away from me.
As Oliveira alluded to, he's been calling for a bout with Nurmagomedov for a while. Case in point, after he defeated Said Nurmagomedov in February, who is not related to Umar, Oliveira also accused Khabib's cousin of being scared of him. So could Umar agree to this fight? While Oliveira is certainly turning some heads, it would be pretty shocking if Nurmagomedov's camp agreed to this bout. Oliveira isn't ranked in the top 10 yet, and Umar is ranked number 2. You could probably say the same thing for O'Malley, who is sitting in the number 1 position. But what do you think? Do you see Sugar or Umar agreeing to fight the surging Brazilian? Brendan Allen reacts to beating Marvin Vettori. Brendan Allen says he's ready to let bygones be bygones with Marvin Vettori, but based on what the middleweight contender is reporting, it doesn't sound like Vettori and his team are there. If you've been following these two, you know they've been feuding, and then some, for a while. So much so, the two went at it in a casino of all places, following a PFL event in Florida last year. Well, the two finally threw hands in the octagon at UFC 318 over the weekend, and Allen took the bout via unanimous decision. The bout was Vettori's first since he tragically lost his younger brother in a house fire this past April. So after the fight, Allen went over to Vettori and his corner, but the gesture apparently wasn't well received. Here's what Allen had to say about what happened during the post-fight presser.
Problems aside, like, my heart goes out to him and his family. My brother has his accident, and he totally lost his brother, so I can't imagine the pain that it feels to fully lose your brother. I didn't lose mine fully, but it still hurts. And his coach just started talking, and I told him to get the out of my face. But yeah, like, yeah, it's just people sticking their nose between two grown men. But yeah, I don't have any bad blood with him. Like, he can say what he wants. He can feel how he wants before, after. That's on him. He's a grown man. I'm a grown man with kids. Like, it's just business to me. Like, we fought.
Allen also referenced his brother's accident during his post-fight interview, who was in attendance at UFC 318. That prompted some fans to question Allen's timing, given the recent tragedy Vettori and his family are still dealing with. But what do you make of Allen's post-fight comments, and who do you want to see Allen fight next? Dana White shuts down Joe Rogan offer. Following UFC 318, Dana White was questioned whether we would ever see him and Conor McGregor on the Joe Rogan Experience, and Dana White shot down the possibility of that ever happening.
Last question for me, how big is the possibility that we ever see a podcast on Joe Rogan, you, Joe Rogan, and Conor McGregor?
Probably never. Probably never.
The last time we saw Dana on the JRE was in 2013 on episode 327, so an episode with the two is definitely long overdue. We have a favor to ask. Help us reach 200,000 subscribers on MMA Zone by subscribing and turning on notifications for daily MMA content. Seriously, we rarely miss a day.